Welcome to the important news of Afghanistan on January 5th, in the decade of July 2025. Some Afghan migrants in Tajikistan say that the security officials of that country have verbally made it clear to them that they must leave the country within 15 days. Afghan migrants in Tajikistan say that the lack of official information and clarity from Tajik authorities has left them worried, and they do not know what their fate will be. The government of Tajikistan, the Afghan embassy in Dushanbe, and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in that country have not yet commented on this matter. Please pay attention to our exclusive report on this topic.
Some Afghan migrants in Tajikistan say that the country's security officials have verbally warned them to leave the country within 15 days. One of them, who did not want to be named in the report due to the sensitivity of the issue and requested a voice change, said that even though they have legal documents. A day earlier, security personnel from Tajikistan came to their house and ordered them to leave the country.
They come to our door and say, if you don't leave here within 15 days, you'll be deported. They openly say deportation will be legal. Nothing is clear. They don't talk to us directly. They come behind the apartment blocks. They come for security reasons. Here in Tajikistan, no one is without documents. No one can come here illegally. Everyone either has documents or is registered. There are people who are waiting for their flights, about 6 of them.
A photo of an Afghan migrant who, 2 months ago, was relocated to Canada after 4 years in Tajikistan, said that his family members are still in Tajikistan and waiting for their immigration cases to be processed. But according to him, the men in the family, even though they had legal documents, were deported to Afghanistan. He added,
the men in the family were deported, while the children, women, and our elders with white beards and hair are still left behind in Tajikistan. But the relatively younger men were taken away without any reason or explanation, even though they had legal documents and hadn't done anything wrong. The fact that they round people up from the streets and alleys without any reason, throw them into vehicles, and take them to the border, even not allowing them to call their families to let them know they're being taken, is truly alarming. It's an absolutely terrifying situation. Please do something about this.
The government of Tajikistan, the Afghan embassy in Dushanbe, and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in that country have so far not made any official statements on this matter. Meanwhile, a reliable official source in Tajikistan has issued an audio message attributed to one of the officials of the Afghan Refugee Committee as a warning. This message, which has also been shared in a WhatsApp group of Afghan migrants, shows that on Wednesday, July 9th, the officials of this committee were summoned by the Tajikistan National Security Directorate and were told that from that day, all Afghan migrants have been given a 15-day deadline to leave Tajikistan. In this message, this person urges the migrants to gather their belongings as soon as possible and get ready to leave, saying that otherwise they will face serious consequences. The Ministry of Refugees and Repatriations of the Taliban government had previously stated that Tajikistan expelled 48 Afghan migrants through the Sher-Khan port in Kunduz province during the first week of the month of Jaza this year. In a statement, the ministry said that among them, 36 individuals had Tajikistan residency documents and 12 others had legal passports and visas for that country. And the reason for this forced expulsion has not been made clear. Tajikistan is one of Afghanistan's neighboring countries, and after the fall of the previous government in 2021, a large number of Afghans, including journalists, civil society activists, and former government employees, have taken refuge there. According to statistics published by the United Nations at the end of 2023, the number of Afghan migrants and asylum seekers in Tajikistan had reached around 10,000. It is said that many of them are still waiting to be transferred to third countries.
In the wake of reactions to the issuance of arrest warrants for Abdullah Akhundzada, the Taliban leader, and Abdul Hakim Haqqani, their Chief Justice, by the International Criminal Court, media outlets report widespread support for this move both nationally and internationally. This action by the International Criminal Court comes at a time when Russia has recently become the first country to officially recognize the Taliban government. Please pay attention to our exclusive report on this topic.
The issuance of arrest warrants for Hibatullah Akhundzada, the Taliban leader, and Abdul Hakim Haqqani, their Chief Justice, by the International Criminal Court, ICC, has been widely welcomed internationally and by human rights activists outside Afghanistan. The Taliban government has also stated that it does not recognize or adhere to this decision in any way. The United Nations, while emphasizing the importance of this international body's work, has called on all countries to comply with its decisions and actions. Stefan Dujarric, the spokesperson for the UN Secretary-General, said this at a press conference on Tuesday.
The ICC is independent from the Secretary-General, but it deserves respect.
The International Criminal Court, ICC, operates independently from the United Nations. We respect the work of this institution. We respect the independence of this body and call on all countries to respect its activities as well. Regarding Afghanistan, as you are aware, we have raised our voices both politically and on human rights issues seriously and openly, together with our partners, against the ongoing and continuous violations of the rights of women and girls in Afghanistan.
Human Rights Watch and Vivian Giles in Afghanistan.
Richard Bennett, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights for Afghanistan, has described this ruling by the International Criminal Court as a major step toward achieving justice for Afghan women and girls. He wrote in a post that this decision shows that accountability for human rights violations will not fade away, and it sends a clear message to those countries that are trying to normalize relations with the Taliban regime. This statement comes at a time when Russia has recently become the first country to officially recognize the Taliban government. Meanwhile, human rights watchdogs have also welcomed the ruling of the International Criminal Court, emphasizing that the international community must support the decisions of this court regarding Afghanistan and other countries. Lisa Van Center, head of the International Justice Division of this organization, said in a statement published on the Human Rights Watch's social media page that these two Taliban officials are being held legally accountable for their repressive actions. The international organization has also called this decision an important step towards holding perpetrators of gender-based crimes in Afghanistan accountable. In a statement published on its social media page, the organization said that gender apartheid should be officially recognized as a crime under international law. Malala Yousafzai, Nobel Peace Prize laureate, has called this move a historic and significant step towards achieving justice for Afghan women. However, in response to this decision, the Taliban government has announced that it does not recognize the International Criminal Court, has no legal dispute with it, and claims that under their rule in Afghanistan, justice is implemented according to Islamic Sharia. But the Taliban's opposition group, known as the National Resistance Front, has welcomed this decision and called for further international restrictions against the Taliban. The Saturdays of Ardbani movement, which supports women's rights, has also welcomed the decision of the International Criminal Court in a statement and called on it to issue arrest warrants for other high-ranking Taliban officials as well. The Human Rights Activists Union emphasized in a statement that this ruling was issued based on credible and reliable evidence, and it means that the era of impunity for war criminals and human rights violators has come to an end. Additionally, a number of women's rights activists have also welcomed the recent decision of the International Criminal Court, or ICC. Taranam Sayedi, head of the Afghan Women's Political Participation Network, said that although implementing this decision is currently difficult, in her view, in the long run, those who oppress women will be held accountable.
Although enforcing this ruling in practice faces challenges due to the absence of these individuals in Afghanistan and the lack of cooperation from the Taliban government, from a legal, ethical, and political standpoint, it is extremely significant. This is an excellent decision that reminds the world that crimes against women are prosecutable offenses at the international level and that Taliban leaders or anyone else are not exempt from responsibility. Ultimately, these crimes and injustices will come to an end.
On Tuesday, July 8th, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Hibatullah Akhundzada, the leader of the Taliban, and Abdul Hakim Haqqani, the Taliban's Chief Justice. The court has announced that there are reasonable grounds to believe that these two have played a role in committing crimes against humanity, specifically in the form of persecution and harassment based on gender and political reasons. In the statement released by the court, it is stated that under Article 7 of the Rome Statute, systematic persecution against women, girls, and other individuals on the basis of gender and political reasons is considered a crime against humanity. It further states that this persecution has been carried out since August 15, 2021, that is, since the Taliban's return to power in Afghanistan, against girls, women, and other individuals who have opposed the Taliban's gender policies or have been recognized as supporters of women's and girls' rights.
After several days of silence from the international community, the United Nations has responded to Russia's decision to recognize the Taliban government, stating that this move will not change the way the organization operates in Afghanistan. The spokesperson for the UN has described this decision as a bilateral matter between Moscow and the Taliban. More details in this report. After several days of silence from the international community, the United Nations has responded to Russia's decision to officially recognize the Taliban government, stating that this move will not change the way the organization operates in Afghanistan. Stefan Dujarric, the spokesperson for the United Nations, recently described this decision as a bilateral matter between Moscow and the Taliban during his press briefing.
The issue of recognition is a bilateral matter between those who recognize each other. For us, our work in Afghanistan will continue unchanged, in accordance with the mandate of the UN Security Council.
Russia, a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, announced last week that it officially recognizes the Taliban government. However, so far, no other country except China has supported this decision. On Friday, July 4th, Pakistan responded cautiously to Russia's move to recognize the Taliban government, stating that this is a matter between two sovereign governments. The Taliban hope that other countries in the region will also be influenced by Russia and officially recognize their government. However, international relations experts believe that this move serves Russia and its allies' political and security interests more than it benefits the people of Afghanistan. Shakriya Baratsai, a former Afghan diplomat, said that in the current situation, with regional conflicts on the rise, Russia's decision sends a message of crisis and danger.
To the Taliban, but not to the people of Afghanistan. There is no benefit in it for Afghanistan, but it does benefit the Taliban. And this benefit is what will bring Afghanistan face to face with yet another crisis. This crisis will not only have no positive message or outcome for Afghanistan, but it will also create concerns for the region as well. In my opinion, although the Taliban and their supporters are happy that a powerful country has recognized them, this recognition is more about guaranteeing the interests of Russia and its friends and allies.
Ishaq Mir, a political analyst, also believes that with this move, Russia is trying to solidify its position in regional politics.
By recognizing the Taliban regime, Russia is trying to show the world that Afghanistan falls within the scope of Russian policies. Another goal of Russia is to be able to use the Taliban as a deterrent force against groups that threaten the security of Central Asian countries and Russia. And this recognition gives Russia that opportunity.
The Taliban described this move by Russia as bold, but the decision has faced widespread reactions. Some Taliban supporters welcomed this action, but human rights organizations and critics of Taliban policies condemned it, calling it in alignment with gender apartheid against Afghan women and a blatant violation of the principles of justice and human rights. Richard Bennett, the UN Special Rapporteur, also expressed concern over Russia's decision, saying that the Taliban should not be recognized officially until there are substantial and verifiable improvements in the human rights situation, especially regarding the rights of women and girls. The United States and many Western countries have also stated that without improvements in human rights, especially the lifting of restrictions on women's work and education, the Taliban cannot have normal relations with the international community. These are among the reasons why, nearly 4 years after the Taliban's return to power in Afghanistan, no country except Russia has officially recognized the Taliban government so far. Rawadaari, a human rights organization, has welcomed the issuance of arrest warrants for Abdullah Akhundzada, the Taliban leader, and Abdul Hakim Haqqani, their chief justice, by releasing a statement in response to this action. But what does this international warrant mean, and what are its consequences? Shazit Akbar Vaisai, the deputy for human rights at Rawadaari, explains this matter and, at the end, discusses the role of this organization in documenting human rights violations in Afghanistan.
A limit is a goal that the court has, and the purpose of announcing this step, is actually also about prevention. In the sense that there is hope that by announcing this issue, a warning is actually being sent to other Taliban leaders who play key roles in implementing gender-based oppressive policies and widespread, systematic discrimination against women, so that they understand their turn will come. In fact, they are in the hands of the court, and if the policies do not change. I mean, this has been the court's hope. That's why they've announced these things publicly. Because in some cases, arrest warrants are not announced so that when people travel, they can be arrested without being aware of it. But as for how much of a deterrent effect this can actually have, well, we saw the Taliban's response yesterday. I think that just the court's announcement alone, without political pressure from countries in the region, unfortunately might not have the effect we expect. We have to be realistic. Well, we've pretty much done documentation in the countries, and we've done 2 documentations, and we've collected very specific documents, for example, for the Taliban's intelligence agency, which really shows how deeply the Taliban's intelligence agency is involved in crimes like enforced disappearances, like torture, like these crimes. There are very extensive accusations against them, and documentation has been done both by us and by others. And likewise, the leaders, officials of institutions like the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Higher Education, have repeatedly, in fact, openly and explicitly emphasized depriving women of their right to education based on their gender. That is to say, there is sufficient documentation. Our hope is that with this warrant becoming public, the Taliban will consider that, the future of a regime whose key figures are actually under arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court, since these are criminal charges, and they are very serious and grave accusations. These are charges of crimes against humanity that are being raised here, and this has a significant impact on the stability or instability of their regime, as well as on their prospects for engagement, international recognition, and legitimacy. This could motivate them to reconsider some of the crimes and violations that are currently ongoing. Because this is not a normal situation for a country like Afghanistan, especially considering the way the Taliban came to power and the absence of elections and such. This court ruling is just another major obstacle for them in reaching their goal of gaining recognition, normalization, or even practical engagement. It definitely makes things more complicated, and our hope is that, in the most optimistic scenario, this will at least lead to an internal discussion within the Taliban's ranks. So, regarding these 2 individuals who have now actually become a responsibility and a burden, since a court order has been issued, meaning an arrest warrant has been issued by the court, what are we going to do about them? And what steps will we take in the future to prevent more of us from being accused of committing this crime by the court?
End of the news.